Hello, I'm Nurbek Savitahunov and you're watching news from Kazakhstan. Another political season opened in Astana on Monday, September 3rd. However, despite experts' forecasts, the first joint session in parliament did not start with reshuffles in government posts. The president even complimented officials, noting how much has been done, and offered them his traditional words of inspiration on their legislative path. The subjects touched on were quite familiar: alternative energy, economy of budget funds, and the fight against disorderly conduct.
The president's speech didn't make an expected furor. The main topic of the surprisingly short sitting in the parliament in the new season was not about much talk of dismissals and reshuffling, but the campaign for keeping city streets clean. The nation's leader noted the high achievements of the government in this regard. This April, during the meeting on the future development of Astana, the head of state declared a mass drive against the litter. Police had started zealously applying fines and even arresting offenders, and the wave of cleaning days rolled all over the country. Nevertheless, today the president was stern, as the measures taken appear not to be sufficient. Seats in the recently opened Almaty subway are covered with graffiti and even stained with the paint sometimes. The petty hooliganism, Nazarbayev claims, is a crime against state property that should be punishable by correctional works, regardless of who the perpetrators are. If you break a lantern in the park, not only should you reimburse the damage, but let's say sweep the alley in the park for 2 weeks. You know quite well, in America, for example, movie stars and well-known politicians, including the members of Congress, sweep streets as a lawful punishment for petty hooliganism. The prospects of sweeping streets seemingly do not frighten parliament members and officials just yet. All of them listened very attentively to the speech about community service. The Minister of Industry, Aset Isekeshov, nodded in agreement, and the Minister of Interior, Kalmuhammed Kasimov, promptly took notes. Well, I don't see this as something shameful. I'm ready to sweep streets and work with a shovel. It's normal. At the same time, Nazarbayev's colleague Murat Abenov reproached law enforcement agencies for using the wrong approach. He says that oftentimes policemen themselves break the rules. Law enforcement agents also need to change their work style. Unfortunately, nowadays their work doesn't elicit trust among the population, and as a rule, their drive to just arrest someone for 15 days or to apply a penalty doesn't stimulate citizens at all. I feel that it should be in law enforcement interest to see that lanterns are not broken. Judging by the speed with which the security officials reacted to the April's order of the head of state, it is clear this time the situation will be repeated. This means that the army of the sweepers will be significantly increased.
At the opening of the new political season, Nazarbayev did not give a single new policy speech, nor mentioned religious and other conflicts that became more frequent this summer, nor even a single hint of personnel changes in his entourage. In a word, everything that was expected by local politicians and analysts. But the national leader did dwell on a brave act of a Kazakh citizen, Igor Vorotnikov, who donated his mother's organs to save 2 of his countrymen at a tragic time of her passing. Nursultan Nazarbayev saw his idea of national unity embodied in the act.
Come to think of it, an ethnic Russian donated his heart to a Kazakh and his kidneys to a German, while the surgery was done by an ethnic Korean, Yuri Pyo. All of this says that we are the United States. This is what the unity of Kazakhstan is all about. This is a real decision of a real man.
Amanjan Raskaliev, brother of the arrested former governor of Atarau region, did not attend the first parliament session of the season, while some media outlets maintained he was present at the anti-nuclear forum with Azat Piruashov.
The head of the Akjol party, Azat Piruashov, said earlier that Amanjan Raskaliev will answer all outstanding questions during the first meeting of the parliament in the new season. Nevertheless, the MP didn't show up for the joint meeting of the parliament with the president. According to some sources, his brother, the former Atarau region governor Bergey Raskaliev, was arrested when trying to leave the country. Initially, members of the Atarau region and city administrations expressed their support for the former boss, although not for long. The regional authorities spoke about missing budget funds and replaced the entire top tier of the local internal affairs department, financial police, and even the National Security Committee. The head of the parliament's Akjol faction, Azat Piruashov, declined to comment on the matter. They are not Akjol party members, they are MPs of Nuratan ruling party. This is their choice and their will. I didn't take part in this.
Almaty-based experts did not let the joint session pass unnoticed. Their first impressions, forecasts were wrong, and the range of issues and instructions touched on was extremely small. A deeper look into their analysis up next.
Құндыгөл, Кендік, Сәтбаев, Төрткөл, Бабай, Керней бар. 9 ауыл. Осы 9 ауылдың осы қатардағы ауылдар байланыс жоқ.
Байланыс жоқ. Связи.
Ешқандай Қазақ телефон несі бар, ал сотовый байланыс, ұялы байланыс деген мүлдем жоқ.
Ұялы байланыс.
Ал бұл кәдімгі екі облыстың арасын жалғап жатқан.
То есть
There's no landline there, maybe Kazakh Telecom, but only in some institutions, not in resident areas. There's also no cell phone coverage in 9 villages on the list. Mukhtar Tayjan can speak for hours about his trip around the regions. The country that is going the way of innovative development still has places with no roads, drinking water and electricity. The expert believes that the problems of the regions should be addressed at the highest level. There was a good chance to put them on the agenda on Monday, but the parliament missed the opportunity during their session attended by the president himself. Our infrastructure is worn out, and this is the most acute problem in Kazakhstan nowadays. After all, infrastructure is civilization. How can one speak of civilization when there's no drinking water in the taps, no heating, constant blackouts, and a lack of communication facilities? Political analyst Marat Shebutov believes that regional issues will fail to receive much attention. During the new political season, the country's administration will most likely focus on the national security. Military and law enforcement presence will be increased, and the MPs will likely discuss new anti-terrorist laws. The government will take a new direction and shift away from economy because in terms of economic development, we are in more or less tolerable position. The authorities will focus more on ideology and war on terror as part of the new law on anti-terrorism, which copies substantially the Russian FSB law on somewhat the American one. The council within the National Security Committee will be a fully functioning body and probably will even substitute the Security Council with new regional headquarters set up. There will be anti-terrorist security passports required at large sites such as supermarkets, transportation hubs, and especially power plants and other key locations. The leader of the National Social Democratic Party, Azat Bulat Abilov, says that some minor changes are expected in the government. In contrast, feasible shifts are expected in the president's administration, although nothing dramatic is likely to occur. I think that President Nazarbayev is not really ready for changes. He doesn't like the fact that major dismissals will lead to rumors and that displeased people will start speaking up. Although I believe the cabinet will be replaced, if not today, then in a month. There will be major changes within the president's administration because there is no way out. But everything will go down smoothly in order not to raise sharp reaction. On Monday, a new political season started in Kazakhstan. It allowed the population to check the experts' earlier forecasts. Unfortunately, the raised issues of clean streets and punishment for littering in Astana pale next to much more sinister events occurred in the country recently. Thus, analysts can only speculate on further political and social life scenarios.
Criticism of special services' incompetence in their fight against extremism is now heard from the Deputy Corps. Among others, Senator Oralbay Abdukarimov voices concern that security officials missed this threat. Even those who served in the NSC expressed unfavorable criticism. Journalist Sergei Duvanov also devoted his Monday feature on these profile crimes. Our coverage of these and other opinions are in the next story.
The criticism from the senator was not expected when Oralbay Abdukarimov said in the interview to the megapolis that special services missed the intrusion of extremism. Infuriated by how many mistakes special operations in Almaty and the region revealed, the senator concluded that law enforcement must be supplied with better equipment and personnel, while new laws for prevention of extremism should be developed. It is also possible that law enforcement agencies responsible for the fight against terrorism fear that if terrorists will not be killed, there might be a leak of unfavorable information. For example, it might be revealed that extremists were supported by some state officials, as without this, they would not be so active. This is my personal opinion, but it just seems that law enforcement are not leaving any witnesses. Sergei Duvanov believes there are no witnesses because there is no terrorism in the country. The prominent journalists have analyzed a series of recent incidents and now says that instead of imaginary threats, people need to pay attention to growing strength of radical Islamic movements. Corruption, social injustice and crises provoke people to go underground. In Duvanov's opinion, making the law against religious minorities stricter and persecuting the opposition radicalizes masses, while the increase of consumer prices and violence against protesters can potentially rise thousands. Islamists do not need actions of intimidation, as dissatisfied people join them anyway. Islamist threat is another issue. This threat is real. Islamists do operate here, but for now they are content with the situation in Kazakhstan. Stability works today in Islamists' favor, however paradoxical this might be. It allows them to promote their ideas without any problems. And they are ahead of the country authorities 100% in terms of propaganda. At the same time, some of the investigators working on high-profile cases are asked new questions. It was revealed on Monday that the sanction for the 2-month arrest of the huntsman Alexei Shkilov was issued in relation to a mass murder in the Ilya-Alatau National Park. It is not clear, though, how this relates to the version of the Prosecutor's General Office that perhaps people involved in the Ilya-Alatau massacre are extremists who were liquidated in the gardening community Tan near Almaty. The assessments of this special operation vary as well. The president's advisor Yermuhamed Yertezbayev is happy that the law enforcement are alive and the suspects were terminated. But a retired NSC officer, Arat Narmambetov, says that this combat operation indicates incompetence and special forces should not be involved in negotiations, allow criminals to take hostages, have a child killed during the operation. It appears that they didn't know that there was a child in the premise, but this exacerbates the situation even more. By virtue of their duty, they have to know who is in there. If they say that they don't know something, it means they're in the wrong place. And this concerns not ordinary servicemen, but the higher-ups in charge of such operations. Why organize raids of the divisional police inspectors? This appears as just another threat, and policemen themselves end up in the hands of extremists, says the expert. He believes that the work of intelligence has to be more organized, and at the very least, 30 veterans have to be recalled to service in order to improve the analytical work. The daughter of the president also said on Monday, in her own way, that people in charge of the fight against extremism should be the ones to react. The MP also noted that mass murders in the south of Kazakhstan are not the reason to demand the resignation of the government.
The Foreign Ministry announced on Monday Uzbek President Islam Karimov will pay an official visit to Astana this coming Thursday. Official MFA spokesman Altai Abubulayev stressed the visit will take place at the invitation of the Kazakh leader.
During the visit, the two heads will sign a joint declaration as well as a number of important intergovernment agreements. The Foreign Ministry has not yet given any information about important intergovernmental agreements to be signed. Meanwhile, experts speculate whether the official visit of Islam Karimov will launch integration process in the Central Asian region. Nursultan Nazarbayev has always supported this idea, saying it will benefit all countries of the region. However, the president of Uzbekistan is rather reluctant to accept it at all. In fact, at one of the top-level meetings, he directly stated that Central Asian Union was unacceptable due to different economic and political situations in each country. However, political scientists believe that process of integration is deterred by the issue of regional leadership. Islam Karimov arrived in Astana for an official visit in June last year to participate in the anniversary summit of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization. He, however, ignored the summit of the Collective Security Treaty Organization held in September last year. Back then, the official Tashkent went as far as announcing its decision to withdraw from the organization.
The trial over opposition leaders Kozlov, Sapargali and oil worker Aminov continued on Monday with more witness interrogations. The last to be called into the courtroom by the prosecution was Talgat Saktaganov, who was sentenced to 4 years in prison for organizing mass riots. His testimony in the next report.
The examination of prosecution's witness Talgat Saktaganov took almost the entire day. Out of all the oil workers convicted for mass disorders, he was the only one invited to be a witness in the court by the prosecution. Saktaganov mainly focused on the problems of oil workers and what led to this months-long labor conflict. Worn out by the several months of the strikes, followed by investigations and litigation, he seemed very tired and sounded a bit irritated. When the judge finished with the main part of the examination and continued with the questioning, Saktaganov completely ran out of patience, negatively reacting to any questions from lawyers and defendants. Similar situation happened during the hearing of previous witnesses, including Azhagalieva, Amirova and Angarbayeva. In the meantime, Saktaganov, one of the most prominent strikers, insisted that they were used by outside forces, which turned an ordinary labor dispute into a political one. I can openly tell Kozlov that all of this was unnecessary. Why did they have to call people to join Halyk Maydane? While we were on strike, neither Kozlov nor Sapargali ever told us that our actions are illegal. I've refused traveling to Warsaw several times, but they were very persistent in getting me involved in this case, and I finally gave in. I reiterate, this was only a labor dispute, but they, Kozlov and Sapargali, took an advantage of the situation, pursuing their own interests, and turned it into politics. I'm very sorry that I went to Europe because, up to date, I can't understand what was the reason. This was a waste of time. Saktaganov calls his trip to see the members of the European Parliament a waste of time, and maybe it was indeed useless. But in this footage from September 2011, the seemingly inspired activist tells reporters about his personal experience upon returning from Europe. He doesn't really look disappointed. On the contrary, Saktaganov praises the way foreigners assess the problems of ordinary people in Kazakhstan.
Они с людьми разговаривают по-человечески.
Our authorities don't want to recognize laws. All they say is that our actions are illegal, while we ask them to point on the illegal actions that we commit. We had 10,000 striking oil workers and only one woman filed a lawsuit representing all of them, while the court didn't rule in our favor. Now everywhere we go, we're shown that verdict. Sokolova was helping us, and within a month, we appealed to 11 state bodies, including the president's office, but received no response. Our actions were justified and legal. Even the hunger strike was organized within all legal terms.
Вот это наша сейчас, которая ситуация, они уже пережили.
While testifying in the court, Saktaganov repeatedly mentioned that Vladimir Kozlov, who brought the oil workers along on a business trip abroad, didn't speak about the Zhanauzian strike while in Warsaw. Kozlov explained that events like OSCE meeting have their own rules that should be followed, and that he wanted to bring out the issue by having the oil workers themselves speak about it at the highest level. In response, Saktaganov continued saying that he didn't understand what was going on and still regrets going to Warsaw, since all of the talks that took place were in vain. Prominent human rights activist Zhemis Turmagambetova remembers the trip to Warsaw very well. In fact, she also participated in this OSCE meeting, representing Kazakhstan along with the oil workers. She remembers how much attention the MEPs paid to the problems of Kazakhstan and how carefully they treated them. I know Vladimir Kozlov well, and he was trying to help people and workers to realize their rights, to be able to protect them. But now he's facing a trial, and authorities are trying to blame him for all the sins. It is a very hard situation that he's facing right now. Monday's hearing on the case of Kozlov, Sapargali and Aminov ended with questioning of the prosecutor's witnesses and the announcement of the examination of defense witnesses.
Vladimir Kozlov does not blame his former colleague Azhangul Amirova for testifying against him last week. As the accused politician told Respublika website in a short interview, public activist Serik Sapargali even expressed words of gratitude to her and her mother. To recount, Amirova served as a witness for the prosecution last week, where her testimony differed significantly from what she had said and done at the demonstration in Zhanauzian.
I'm not condemning Azhangul, and so should no one. Only people who went through all of this can do that. During the 5.5 months in jail, even men break down, and she's a woman. She must be treated as such. That's why I don't condemn, but understand her.
European Parliament member Marek Migalski demands an end to persecution and to drop all charges against the opposition politician from Kazakh authorities. He claimed the trial over Alga party leader is a political order. He is disturbed by information of gross violations at the trial over Vladimir Kozlov coming from human rights organizations, namely the lack of professional Kazakh-Russian translations of case materials and time restraints placed on the accused for familiarization with the case. The judge not only broke with proceedings, but also denied motions by the defense, completely ignoring their legislative demands, emphasized the parliamentarian.
I want you to note that according to Article 14 of the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, signed by the Republic of Kazakhstan, everyone has a right for a fair trial. I believe that the case against Vladimir Kozlov was politically motivated, and that is why I call to immediately stop the persecution of this activist and drop all charges against him.
Stage director Bolat Atabayev's travel bag with documents was stolen in Germany as he planned to return to Kazakhstan on Sunday, September 2nd. In addition, Bolat Manashevich found out he was being followed. The director links the incident to his intention to visit the trial over Vladimir Kozlov and provide evidence consistent with his previous testimonies.
The stage director was planning to return to Kazakhstan on September 6, but he had changed his mind after learning of his pseudo-testimonies presented last week during the social hatred trial. Outraged, Atabayev immediately faxed a letter to the judge saying that his testimony was twisted. Just recently, on August 28, Bolat Atabayev was awarded the Goethe Medal for the development of Kazakh-German culture relations. In my testimonies, I said nothing against Vladimir Kozlov. I'm interrupting my visit to Germany to return to Oktau for the trial. Also, I won't be alone. I suddenly left the hotel and went outside, and it seems that they didn't expect me there. As they rushed around, one of them got in the car while the other one was just standing there. I believe they were watching me, yet I do not know why.
In related news, Vladimir Kozlov's spouse, Aliya Toruzbekova, announced on Monday that she found a device in a rented apartment on Saturday. Located inside the floor under the window, Aliya assumes this may be a hearing device, or rather a listening device. The very next day, it has mysteriously disappeared from her apartment. Police investigators resorted to a new plan, says Aliya Toruzbekova. In the morning, she left her apartment while her driver was still there. Later, traffic police officers appeared on the scene and asked the driver to follow them outside in order to verify the identification. Apparently, this was done as part of an ongoing operation to detain an offender driving a Toyota who hit a pedestrian the night before. Once Aliya and her driver returned home and decided to remove the device, which they found earlier under the floor molding, it was no longer there. Aliya is still puzzled about the possible reason for wiretapping. When I returned home, I first called my friend to find out whether any other SUVs were stopped and recalled that a device was planted yesterday in my room. It was in the morning. I entered my bedroom and nothing was there, nothing at all. I did not record it on the phone camera because no one knew it will happen in the morning. The thing is that we found out about it in the morning, that this was wiretapping. We did not expect it, as we are not specialists. I did not realize that this would be quite a large device. I thought it would be a little smaller. Inmates cut open their stomachs. There's a riot in colony AK-159/5 and troops were called in for help. These rumors appeared in the city of Karaganda over the weekend. To verify the information, prisoners' relatives gathered at the colony walls and are standing there for the third day in a row. They demand administrators to organize a meeting with their close ones. According to them, security forces are beating inmates to death inside the colony. Our correspondents attempted to find out more.
There were cars, big trucks loaded with servicemen and dogs. I saw lots of servicemen. The special police unit was also here. We had no place to park the cars. Convicts' families were told by the staff of the Karaganda Regional Department of Correctional System that prisoners showed disobedience to the facility administration. Apparently, they were aggressive enough to warn the prison staff using special equipment to settle the conflict. Right now, the situation in the prison is under control. We had to hospitalize one convict who stabbed himself multiple times in the stomach. The ambulance team performed first aid, and later he was taken to the hospital for checkup. According to a different official version, convicts deliberately provoked a prison uprising, thus hoping to get a better warm treatment. For several days in a row, about 24 women are waiting by the walls of the prison, AK-159/5, located in the Karagan village of the Karaganda region. They don't leave the premise even to sleep and eat, in hopes to find out about the fate of their close ones behind the walls. According to these women, servicemen were brought to the facility to beat the prisoners. 5 are dead already and 30 have stab wounds. According to our sources, they're just lying in the prison yard with their stomachs sliced open. Patients die from such injuries in hospital, while here the prison staff is doing nothing to help convicts. The text message sent from the prison informed convicts' families about the beatings at the hands of law enforcement officers. However, the real reasons for the escalated conflict in the well-protected prison are still unknown. To this day, none of the officials spoke to the people outside the facility. They don't even come to talk to us, which means they don't care about us. We ask them to just let us hear their voices to confirm that they are alive, and as soon as they will let us do that, we will leave. We're standing here because we want to keep the troops away from the prison. That's the whole point why we are here. On Monday, about 24 women took an extreme step by blocking the road with their bodies.
Погибшие или раненые, вы можете сказать два слова? Ничего, а зато наши людей тут ломаете. Дверь свою сломаете. Вы можете нормально выйти? Дверь ему сломают. Вот что ему важно, дверь ему сломают. А то, что жизни людские ломаете, это нормально? Да, что дети убьют, что? Ему почевали, сука.
This woman is an eyewitness who saw during her appointment with her husband how prisoners were brought out of the disciplinary cell. 2 men were brought out, one had a head injury and another was bending in pain. I heard screams and noises, they are cleanly beating them. I saw all this during my appointment there. In the meantime, the mothers and wives of prisoners said that they are not planning to leave the premises before they personally do not see their loved ones safe and sound.
Kazakhstan's Human Rights Office addressed the Minister of Interior Kalmuhanbet Kasimov and General Prosecutor Askhad Daulbayev on Monday. They are concerned with the recent increase in complaints from Karaganda Correctional Facility prisoners over cruel and degrading treatment. According to social activists, 16 inmates are hospitalized in serious condition. 3 inmates died.
The Bureau calls law enforcement agencies to investigate these messages in accordance with the fundamental principles of the UN Convention Against Torture. If the facts will not be confirmed, the information should be publicly refuted. Otherwise, it is necessary to provide assistance in further detailed investigation as specified in the aforementioned instruction.
This is all we have time for now. Thank you for watching. See you tomorrow.